The year was 2347. Earth had changed so much from the old days. Humans now lived on Mars and on the moons of Jupiter. Big cities covered entire continents. Tall towers reached into the sky. Flying cars moved between buildings. Robots helped with everyday work. People believed life was good and getting better. Captain Day-Wan stood on the bridge of his ship, the Thunderbolt. He was looking at the stars through the big windows. His ship floated in space above Earth. Everything seemed peaceful. Day-Wan was a tall man with short black hair and serious eyes. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He knew how to fight, but he hoped he would never need to fight again. Lieutenant Bo-Ra sat at the controls nearby. She was young, only 25 years old, but she was the best pilot in the fleet. Her fingers moved quickly over the buttons and screens. She smiled as she flew the ship in smooth circles around Earth. Flying made her happy. She never wanted to do anything else. Down in the science lab, Dr. Taemin was working on a new weapon design. He was a scientist who loved to build things. His messy hair fell over his glasses as he bent over his computer. He was trying to make human weapons stronger and faster, but deep down he hoped no one would ever need to use them. General Heejin was in her office on the space station above Earth. She was in charge of all the defense forces. Papers covered her desk. She was reading reports about food supplies and fuel tanks. Everything was normal. Everything was boring. She almost wished something interesting would happen. She would soon regret that wish. On Earth, in the city of Seoul, Sergeant Minji was training her soldiers. They ran through the streets in heavy armor. They practiced shooting at targets. They learned how to fight in buildings and tunnels. Minji shouted orders at them. She was tough and strong. She had fought in small wars on the outer colonies. She knew how to lead soldiers. But she had never seen a real war. Not yet. Then everything changed in one terrible moment. The warning sirens started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. On the Thunderbolt, Bo-Ra looked at her screens and gasped. Giant ships were appearing in space. They just appeared out of nowhere like ghosts becoming real. The ships were huge, bigger than mountains. They were dark and covered in strange symbols. Day-Wan ran to the main screen. He could not believe what he was seeing. There were hundreds of alien ships. They surrounded Earth like a net. He had never seen anything like them. No one had. Humans thought they were alone in the universe. They were wrong. General Heejin tried to contact the alien ships. She sent messages in every language. She offered peace. She asked questions. The aliens did not answer. They did not talk. They just attacked. Bright beams of light shot from the alien ships. They hit the defense stations around Earth. The stations exploded in balls of fire. Metal and glass flew everywhere. Thousands of people died in seconds. The aliens kept firing. They hit satellites. They hit space stations. They hit everything. Day-Wan shouted orders to his crew. The Thunderbolt fired back with missiles and lasers. The weapons hit the alien ships, but nothing happened. The aliens had shields that stopped everything. The human weapons just bounced off like rain on glass. Bo-Ra launched her fighter from the Thunderbolt. She flew toward an alien ship with 50 other pilots behind her. They fired everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Lasers cut through the darkness, but the alien shields held. One by one, the alien ships fired back. Human fighters exploded. Bo-Ra saw her friends die. She kept flying. She had to try. On Earth, the attacks began. Alien ships dropped from the sky. They fired energy beams at the cities. Buildings melted like ice in the sun. The Great Tower in Tokyo fell, killing millions of people. The bridges in New York collapsed. Fire covered the streets of London. Everywhere, people screamed and ran. But there was nowhere to hide. Minji watched the sky turn red over Seoul. Alien ships flew overhead. They fired down at the streets. She grabbed her rifle and shouted at her soldiers. They had to save people. They ran into the burning city. Buildings were falling. Cars were exploding. People were crying for help. Minji led her soldiers through the smoke and fire. They found families trapped in buildings. They carried children on their backs. They helped old people walk. They fought alien soldiers that landed in the streets. The aliens were tall and wore black armor. They had strange weapons that turned people into dust. Minji shot at them with her rifle. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. In space, Dr. Taemin watched the battle from his lab. He saw the human weapons fail. He saw the alien shields block everything. His mind raced. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. He started working on his computer. He needed to find the answer fast. An alien scout ship crashed near the space station. Day One sent soldiers to capture it. They brought back pieces of alien technology. Taman examined everything. He scanned the metal. He tested the circuits. He studied the shield generator. Hours passed. The battle raged outside. More humans died every minute. Then Taman found something. The alien shields used a special frequency. They vibrated at a certain speed. If humans could match that frequency, they could disrupt the shields. It was like breaking glass with sound. He ran the numbers again and again. It could work. It had to work. Taman called General Hyejin. He explained his theory. She listened carefully. It was risky. It was untested. But they had no choice. Hyejin looked at the reports on her screen. Half the fleet was destroyed. 40,000 soldiers were dead. Cities were burning. If they did nothing, everyone would die. Hyejin made her decision. She ordered all remaining ships to fall back. They would retreat to hidden positions. They would rebuild. They would prepare. And they would use Taman's new weapon. The aliens would think they won. They would think humans were finished. They were wrong. Daewon flew the Thunderbolt away from Earth. He hated retreating. It felt like running away. But he trusted Hyejin. She had a plan. Bora followed in her damaged fighter. She had survived. Many others had not. She looked back at Earth. The planet was covered in smoke and fire. But it was still there. Humans were still there. They would fight back. Minji led 2 million people out of Seoul. They walked through the mountains. They hid in tunnels. The alien ships still hunted them. But Minji kept them safe. She promised them that this was not the end. Humanity would survive. They would find a way to win. The first day of the war ended. Earth was broken but not dead. The aliens thought they had won. Their commander, Rathnul, looked at the burning planet and smiled. One more day and the humans would surrender. One more day and Earth would belong to the Vexlar Dominion. But Rathnul did not understand humans. He did not know that humans never give up. He did not know that when you push humans to the edge, they push back harder. He did not know that he had just started a war that would shake the entire galaxy. The aliens attacked. Now the humans would fight back. And nothing would ever be the same again. Deep under the Himalayan mountains, Dr. Taman worked in a secret bunker. The walls were thick concrete and steel. Guards stood at every door. Inside, Taman had built a laboratory. Computers covered the tables. Wires hung from the ceiling. He had not slept in 3 days. Taman was building a new weapon. It would send out a special electromagnetic pulse. This pulse would match the frequency of the alien shields. If he got it right, the shields would fail. If he got it wrong, nothing would happen. He checked his numbers one more time. His eyes hurt from staring at screens. His hands shook from drinking too much coffee. But he kept working. Above ground, the war continued. The aliens controlled the skies. They thought they had won. But humans were hiding, planning, and preparing. In caves and tunnels, in underground bases and secret facilities, humans built their strength back slowly. Lieutenant Bora volunteered to test the new weapon. She stood in the hangar looking at her fighter. Mechanics had attached strange new missiles to the wings. These missiles contained Taman's electromagnetic pulse. They looked normal on the outside. But inside they were completely different. General Hyejin walked up to Bora. The general looked tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. She put a hand on Bora's shoulder and said the mission was dangerous. The weapon might not work. The alien ship might destroy her. Bora nodded. She understood. She climbed into her fighter anyway. Bora flew low through the mountains. She stayed close to the ground where the alien sensors could not see her well. Her heart beat fast in her chest. She had been afraid before, but never like this. She was flying alone against an enemy that seemed impossible to beat. She found an alien scout ship floating above a valley. It was alone, searching for hiding humans. Bora took a deep breath. She pressed the button. The missiles launched. They streaked toward the alien ship, leaving white trails in the sky. The missiles hit the alien shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Bora felt her stomach drop. Then the shields flickered. They turned from blue to purple to white. Then they disappeared completely. The alien ship was naked, vulnerable. Bora fired her regular weapons. Lasers and bullets hit the alien hull. Metal tore apart. Fire burst from the ship. The alien vessel spun and fell from the sky. It crashed into the mountain and exploded. Bora shouted with joy. The weapon worked. Humanity had a chance. She flew back to base. When she landed, everyone was cheering. Taemin was crying with relief. Heejin smiled for the first time in weeks. Daewon shook Bora's hand. They had found the answer. Now they needed to build more weapons, many more. On Earth, Sergeant Minji fought a different kind of war. She could not hide with her soldiers in bunkers and wait. People needed help right now. Aliens were hunting humans in the cities. Minji led her troops in guerrilla attacks. They hit the aliens and ran away before reinforcements arrived. They used the buildings and streets that humans knew so well. They set traps. They ambushed patrols. They saved civilians and disappeared into tunnels. The aliens grew frustrated. These humans refused to surrender. They kept fighting no matter what. Minji remembered something her teacher told her long ago. A big enemy can be beaten by a small enemy if the small enemy is smart and never stops fighting. The aliens were big and powerful, but humans were smart, and humans would never stop. One night, Minji led an attack on an alien supply depot in the ruins of Seoul. Her soldiers crawled through the rubble in the dark. They carried explosives on their backs. The alien guards did not see them coming. The humans placed the bombs and ran. The explosion lit up the night sky. Food and fuel burned. The aliens would have less supplies now. While the ground war continued, General Heejin organized the biggest secret project in human history. Every factory that still worked was making the new weapons. On the moon and hidden bases on Mars and the asteroid belt, humans built their fleet in secret. They fixed damaged ships. They armed every vessel with the new missiles. Captain Daewon trained the crews. They practiced attack patterns. They learned to fire together at exactly the same time. Speed and coordination would be everything. One ship alone could not beat the aliens. But hundreds of ships working together might have a chance. Daewon pushed his people hard. They trained 18 hours a day. Some complained. Some were too tired to walk. But Daewon did not let them rest. He explained that every person they saved depended on them being perfect. There was no room for mistakes. The aliens would not give them a second chance. 3 weeks passed. The aliens thought they controlled everything. Their commander, Rathnul, stood on his ship and looked at Earth. The planet was mostly quiet now. A few small attacks here and there, nothing serious. He thought the humans were almost defeated. He sent a message to his homeworld saying victory was certain. Rathnul did not know that under the ground, under the oceans, and in hidden bases across the solar system, humans were preparing the largest counterattack ever seen. 500 ships were ready, 50,000 fighters, 2 million soldiers, and all of them carried the new weapons that could break alien shields. General Hae-jin sent a message to every human in the solar system. Her voice was broadcast to ships, to bunkers, to soldiers hiding in ruins. She said humanity would not surrender. She said they would fight back. She said every person who could hold a weapon would stand and face the enemy. Today, humanity would show the galaxy what humans were made of. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt. His crew was at their stations. Every screen showed green lights. Every weapon was loaded. Every system was ready. He looked at Bora. She nodded. Her fighter wing was prepared. He looked at his weapons officer. Ready. His engineer. Ready. Everyone was ready. Daewon took a deep breath. He thought about all the people who had died. His friends. His family. Billions of humans killed by these aliens who came without warning or mercy. Now it was time to make them pay. Now it was time to show them that humans were not weak. That humans were not prey. That when you attack humans, they fight back with everything they have. Dr. Timon sat in the operations center, watching screens showing every ship. His weapon would be tested in the biggest battle ever. If it failed, humanity would die. If it worked, they had a chance. His hands were sweating. His heart was pounding. But he trusted his work. He trusted the math. He trusted the science. On Earth, Sergeant Minji gathered her soldiers. She told them that the fleet was coming. She told them to be ready. When the ships attacked from above, ground forces would attack from below. The aliens would be trapped between two human armies. Minji checked her rifle one more time. She looked at her soldiers. They were tired, dirty, and scared. But they were also angry, and angry humans were dangerous. General Hae-jin gave the final order. All ships were to jump to Earth orbit and attack immediately. No warnings, no mercy. Hit them hard and do not stop until every alien ship was destroyed or driven away. This was humanity's moment. This was their chance to survive. Captain Daewon pressed the button. The Thunderbolt jumped through space. 500 ships jumped with him. They appeared above Earth in perfect formation. The alien fleet was right in front of them, surprised, confused, vulnerable. Daewon smiled grimly and said one word into his radio. That word was heard by every human ship, every fighter, every soldier. That word meant the war had changed. That word meant humanity was done running and hiding. That word was simple and powerful. That word was fire. Thousands of missiles launched at once. The electromagnetic pulse weapons flew from every human ship. They streaked through space like a wall of light. The missiles hit the alien fleet before the aliens could react. The alien shields flickered. They buzzed and hummed. Then they failed. Captain Daewon watched as the alien ship suddenly became vulnerable. He shouted the order to fire everything. The Thunderbolt fired its railguns. Huge metal slugs shot through space faster than bullets. They punched through alien hulls like paper. Behind him, 499 other ships did the same. The space around Earth turned into a storm of fire and metal. Alien ships exploded. Pieces of armor flew in all directions. For the first time since the war began, humans were winning. The alien commander Rathnal stared at his screens in shock. This was impossible. How were the humans breaking their shields? Lieutenant Bora led 10,000 fighters into the battle. They flew in tight formations, just like they practiced. Each fighter carried the new missiles. They targeted the alien weapons. One by one, the alien guns went silent. Bora flew through clouds of debris and fire. She had lost friends in the first attack. Now she was getting revenge. Her radio was filled with voices, pilots calling out targets, captains coordinating attacks. Someone was singing. Someone else was crying. Bora focused on flying. She fired her weapons at an alien cruiser. Her missiles hit the ship's engine. The engine exploded and the whole ship started spinning out of control. On Mars, the colonists saw the battle in the sky. They had been hiding in underground tunnels for weeks. Now they heard General Hyojin's message. It was time to fight back. The colonists grabbed whatever weapons they had. Mining lasers, construction equipment, even rocks and metal bars. They stormed out of the tunnels and attacked the alien occupation forces. The aliens on Mars had grown lazy. They thought the colonists were defeated. They were wrong. Humans poured out of every tunnel and building. They attacked from all sides. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered and surprised. On Europa, the small colony activated hidden weapons. Old defense guns that everyone thought were broken suddenly came to life. They fired at alien ships in orbit. The aliens had not expected this. They had thought Europa was empty. Now they were being shot at from a moon they had ignored. Even in the asteroid belt, miners joined the fight. They had big ships designed to push asteroids. They used these ships to ram alien vessels. The alien ships were faster and had better weapons, but the mining ships were tough and heavy. When they crashed into alien ships, both vessels were destroyed. The miners did not care. They were willing to die if it hurt the aliens. Back on Earth, Sergeant Minji heard the explosions in the sky. She knew the fleet had arrived. She shouted orders to her soldiers. They ran out of their hiding places. All across Earth, human soldiers appeared. They attacked alien ground forces from behind. The aliens were looking up at the space battle. They did not see the humans coming until it was too late. Minji led her troops through the ruins of Seoul. They had grenades that used the same electromagnetic pulse as the ship weapons. They threw these grenades at alien soldiers. The alien armor stopped working. Their weapons died. Then the humans attacked with regular guns and knives. It was brutal and close, but humans were good at this kind of fighting. The battle lasted 3 days. For 3 days straight, humans and aliens fought across the solar system. Ships exploded in space. Cities burned on Earth. Soldiers died on both sides. But slowly the tide turned. The aliens were losing. They had never faced an enemy like this before. On the 4th day, Captain Daewon identified the most important target. At the edge of the solar system, there was a massive alien ship. It was bigger than any other. This was the mothership. This was where Rathnal commanded the invasion. If they destroyed that ship, the alien fleet would fall apart. Daewon called General Hyojin. He explained his plan. It was dangerous. They would have to take every remaining ship and attack the mothership directly. Many humans would die, but if they succeeded, the war would be over. Hyojin looked at the reports. They had already lost so many ships and so many people, but Daewon was right. This was their chance to end it. She approved the plan. Every human ship that could still fly headed toward the mothership. Dr. Taimin had one more surprise. He had built a super weapon. It was 10 times more powerful than the regular missiles. It would create an electromagnetic pulse so strong that every alien ship nearby would be destroyed. But someone would have to deliver it right to the mothership's core. Taimin volunteered to do it himself. He said he knew the weapon better than anyone. He would take a small ship and fly it into the mothership. Hyojin did not want to let him go. He was too valuable. But Taimin insisted. This was his weapon. This was his responsibility. Hyojin finally agreed. She hugged him and thanked him for everything. The human fleet arrived at the mothership. It was enormous. It looked like a small planet floating in space. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it. The aliens were expecting the attack now. They were ready. But so were the humans. Daewon gave the order to attack. Every ship fired at once. The sky lit up with weapons fire. The aliens fired back. Ships on both sides exploded. Bora led her fighters in a desperate attack on the mothership's weapons. They flew so close to the alien ship that they could see the windows. They fired their missiles at point-blank range. Dr. Taimin flew his small ship through the chaos. Explosions happened all around him. Alien fighters chased him. Human fighters protected him. One by one, his escorts were shot down, but he kept flying toward the mothership. He could see an opening in the hull where Bora's fighters had damaged the armor. He aimed for that opening. Alien guns fired at him. His ship was hit. Alarm screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit, but the ship still flew. Taimin pushed the engines to maximum. He flew right into the opening. He was inside the mothership now. Dark corridors stretched ahead. He flew deeper and deeper until he found what he was looking for. The reactor core, the heart of the ship. Taimin activated the super weapon. A timer appeared on his screen. 10 minutes. That was all the time he had. He tried to fly back out, but his ship was too damaged. The engines died. He was stuck. He sat in his cockpit and thought about Earth. He thought about his friends. He thought about all the humans who would live because of what he was doing. He opened his radio and spoke to General Hyojin one last time. He told her the weapon was armed. He told her to get all human ships away from the mothership. He told her it had been an honor to serve. Hyojin was crying. She ordered all ships to retreat immediately. Daewon heard the order. He shouted for everyone to pull back. The Thunderbolt turned and flew away at full speed. Bora and her fighters followed. All across the battlefield, human ships retreated. The aliens thought the humans were running. They started to chase. Then the superweapon exploded. The electromagnetic pulse expanded like a wave of invisible energy. It hit the mothership first. Every system failed at once. The shields collapsed. The weapons died. The engines stopped. The lights went out. The massive ship became nothing more than a dead piece of metal floating in space. The pulse wave kept expanding. It hit the alien ships that were chasing the humans. One by one, they all died. No shields, no weapons, no power. They drifted helplessly in space. The human ships, which were far enough away, turned around. Now the aliens were the vulnerable ones. Captain Daewon gave the order. No mercy, no prisoners. Every alien ship was to be destroyed. The humans attacked with everything they had. For hours, they hunted down and destroyed the helpless alien vessels. By the end of the day, the alien fleet was gone. Commander Rathanul died when the mothership exploded. The invasion was over. Humanity had won. The silence after the battle was strange. For weeks, there had been constant noise, explosions, weapons fire, screams, alarms. Now there was only quiet. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt and looked at the empty space where the alien fleet had been. Debris floated everywhere. Pieces of ships. Pieces of lives. His crew was exhausted. They sat at their stations with blank faces. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some just stared at nothing. They had survived. Somehow they had survived. But the cost had been terrible. Lieutenant Bora landed her fighter on the Thunderbolt's deck. She climbed out slowly. Her legs could barely hold her weight. She had been flying and fighting for 4 days straight. When her feet touched the floor, she collapsed. Medical teams ran to help her. She waved them away. She was not hurt. She was just tired. So very tired. General Hyjin sat alone in her office on the space station. Papers covered her desk. Reports from every corner of the solar system. The numbers were terrible. 5 billion people dead on Earth. 3/4 of the Mars colonies destroyed. Europa and the other moons heavily damaged. Half the defense fleet gone. More than 60% of all fighters lost. But those numbers could have been worse. Much worse. If Dr. Taemin had not discovered the weakness in the alien shields, everyone would have died. Hyojin thought about Taemin. He had saved humanity. And he had paid for it with his life. She cried for the first time since the war began. She cried for him and for all the others who would never come home. On Earth, Sergeant Minji walked through the ruins of Seoul. The fighting on the ground had stopped. The aliens were all dead or fled. But the city was destroyed. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were full of rubble. Fires still burned in some places. Bodies lay everywhere. Minji's soldiers were helping dig through the ruins. They searched for survivors. Sometimes they found people still alive, trapped under concrete and steel. Those were good days. More often, they found only bodies. Those were the hard days. Minji kept her soldiers working. If they stopped moving, they would think about what they had lost. Movement was better than thinking. The survivors gathered in camps outside the destroyed cities. Millions of people with no homes. No food, no clean water. But they were alive. And alive meant there was hope. Minji visited the camps every day. She talked to the people. She promised them that things would get better. She promised that they would rebuild. She hoped she was telling the truth. As the days passed, humans started to recover. Factories began working again. Farms produced food. Power plants came back online. Slowly, very slowly, life started to return to normal. But it was a different normal. Everyone had lost someone. Everyone had scars. Captain Daewon helped coordinate the cleanup in space. Thousands of wrecked ships floated around Earth. Some were human. Most were alien. They needed to clear the debris before it became dangerous. Work crews went out in small ships and collected the wreckage. The human ships were brought back for burial. The alien ships were studied. Scientists examined every piece of alien technology they could find. The aliens had been more advanced than humans in many ways. Their shields, their weapons, their engines. All of it was better than human technology. Now humans had access to all of it. They could learn. They could improve. They could make sure no other aliens ever caught them unprepared again. General Hyojin ordered the construction of a memorial station. It would orbit Earth and contain the names of everyone who died in the war. Dr. Taemin's name would be first. The station would also serve as a research center. Scientists would study the captured alien technology there. They would name it the Taemin Memorial Station. His sacrifice would never be forgotten. But humanity's problems were not over. News traveled fast in space. The Vexlar Dominion had lost an entire invasion fleet. Other aliens across the galaxy heard about it. Some were afraid. Some were curious. And some saw opportunity. 6 months after the battle, strange ships arrived at Earth. They were not Vexlar. They were different aliens. These aliens sent messages in many languages. They said they came in peace. They said they wanted to talk. General Hyojin was suspicious. She remembered how the Vexlar came without warning, but she agreed to meet them. The alien delegates came to the space station. There were 5 different species. They looked strange to human eyes. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and covered in fur. Some did not even breathe oxygen. But they could all talk. And they all had the same message. They told Hyojin that the Vexlar Dominion had conquered many worlds. The Vexlar were bullies who took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. These other aliens had all suffered under Vexlar attacks. Some had lost colonies. Some had lost entire planets. When they heard that humans defeated a Vexlar invasion fleet, they were amazed. The aliens offered an alliance. Together they could protect each other from the Vexlar and other threats. They would share technology. They would trade goods. They would defend each other. Hyojin listened carefully. She consulted with the Earth government. After much discussion, they agreed. Humanity would join the alliance. This decision changed everything. Humans were no longer alone. They had friends across the galaxy. They had allies who would help them rebuild. And they had enemies who now feared them. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Humans looked weak. They seemed primitive. But when pushed to the edge, they fought back with terrifying strength. Stories spread across the galaxy. Stories about the war, stories about how humans never surrendered, about how they found the weakness in the Vexlar shields, about how they destroyed an entire invasion fleet. Other species started to call humans by a new name. They called them the Warriors of Earth. Some species said it with respect. Others said it with fear. Captain Daywan was promoted to admiral. He was now in charge of Earth's entire defense fleet. The fleet was growing fast. New ships were being built using human and alien technology combined. These new ships were faster and stronger than anything humans had before. Daiwan trained the crews personally. He made sure they knew how to fight. Earth would never be caught unprepared again. Lieutenant Bora became Commander Bora. She trained pilots from Earth and from the allied alien species. She taught them the tactics that had worked against the Vexlar. She taught them to be fast and fearless. She taught them that size and power were not everything. Sometimes skill and determination mattered more. Sergeant Minji founded a military academy in the rebuilt city of Seoul. She trained soldiers from across the solar system. She taught them guerrilla tactics. She taught them how to fight when you are outnumbered. She taught them how to win when winning seems impossible. Her students came from Earth, Mars, Europa, and even some from allied alien worlds. 2 years after the war, Earth looked very different. The cities had been rebuilt, but they were better now. Stronger walls, better defenses. The new buildings used alien technology to make them resistant to energy weapons. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet. Hundreds of ships patrolled the solar system. Earth was ready. If another enemy came, they would regret it. The Vexillar Dominion never attacked Earth again. They had learned their lesson. They told other aggressive species about what happened. They warned them that humans were not easy prey. Some species listened. Others did not believe the stories. Those who did not believe would learn the same lesson eventually. General Hyejin stood at the window of her office and looked at Earth. The planet was healing. The scars of war were fading. New generations were being born who would never remember the invasion. But Hyejin would never forget. None of the survivors would forget. They had learned what humans were capable of when threatened. Humans could be peaceful. They could be kind. They could be gentle. But when attacked, when their homes were threatened, when their families were in danger, humans became something else. They became warriors who would fight to the last breath. They became defenders who would never surrender. They became the species that the whole galaxy learned to respect. And that respect was earned in fire and blood and sacrifice. 10 years had passed since the war. Earth looked completely different now. The ruined cities had been replaced by gleaming towers that reached toward the stars. These new buildings combined human architecture with alien technology. They could withstand almost any attack. Energy shields protected every major population center. Humans had learned from their mistakes. Admiral Daywan walked through the halls of the Taemin Memorial Station. The station orbited Earth like a guardian. Inside, researchers worked on new technologies. Outside, defense platforms bristled with weapons. Daywan was older now. His hair had turned gray, but his eyes were still sharp. He still commanded the defense fleet. He would never retire, not while threats existed in the galaxy. He stopped at the memorial wall. Billions of names were carved into the black stone. Each name represented someone who died in the war. Daywan touched Dr. Taemin's name. He did this every week. He wanted to remember what they had sacrificed. He wanted to make sure their deaths meant something. Commander Bora was teaching a class on the station. Her students came from 15 different planets. Some were human. Some were not. They all wanted to learn from the woman who helped defeat the Vexillar. Bora showed them videos of the battles. She explained the tactics. She told them that bravery was important, but strategy was more important. And most important of all was never giving up. One young pilot asked her if she was ever afraid during the war. Bora smiled. She said she was terrified every single day. Fear was natural. Fear kept you alive. The key was not letting fear stop you. You felt the fear and then you did what needed to be done anyway. That was what made a warrior. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. On Earth, Sergeant Minji watched her grandchildren play in a park. The park was built where the ruins of Seoul used to be. Her grandchildren laughed and ran in the sunshine. They did not remember the war. They had been born after peace returned. Minji was glad they would never know that fear. But she also worried they might forget what their grandparents fought for, might forget the cost of freedom. She still taught at the military academy. Even though she was old now, students came from across the galaxy to learn from her. She taught them that technology was useful, but it was not everything. Wars were won by people, by soldiers who refused to quit, by leaders who made hard choices, by civilians who endured suffering. Technology could help you, but spirit would save you. General Heejin had retired from military service. She now advised the Earth government on diplomatic matters. The alliance she had formed with other alien species had grown strong. 30 different civilizations now worked together. They shared technology. They traded goods. They protected each other from threats. It was the largest peaceful alliance in the galaxy. But the alliance had enemies. The Vexlar Dominion still existed. They had retreated to their home systems, but they had not forgotten their defeat. They plotted revenge. Other aggressive species also threatened the alliance. Pirates raided trade ships. Warlords tried to conquer weaker planets. The galaxy was still a dangerous place. That was why the alliance maintained a strong military. Human ships formed the core of the defense fleet. Admiral Daewon commanded them all. When threats appeared, human ships responded first. The alliance members knew they could count on Earth. Humans had proven they knew how to fight. More importantly, they had proven they would fight when necessary. The reputation of humans had spread across the galaxy. Some species admired them. Some feared them. Some wanted to be like them. Young aliens came to Earth to study at the academies. They wanted to learn human tactics. They wanted to understand human determination. They wanted to know the secret of how such a small species defeated a powerful empire. The truth was simple. Humans did not have one special advantage. They were not the strongest. They were not the smartest. Their technology was not the best. But humans had something rare in the galaxy. They had the ability to adapt, to learn from mistakes, to work together when threatened, and they had an unbreakable will to survive. Earth had also become a center of culture and learning. Human art, music, and literature spread across the galaxy. Aliens visited Earth to see the memorial station, to walk through the museums that showed the war, to understand the species that refused to die. Earth was no longer an isolated planet. It was a beacon of hope for species everywhere who faced oppression. The human colonies beyond Earth had grown strong. Mars was now home to billions of people. It had its own government, its own culture. But Mars still considered itself part of humanity. Europa and the other moons had been transformed into thriving communities. Humans had even established colonies on planets in other star systems. Everywhere humans went, they built, they grew, they thrived. One day, Admiral Daewon received a strange message. It came from the edge of known space. The message was from a Vexlar ship, but it was not a threat. It was a request. A group of Vexlar rebels wanted to meet with humans. They said they were tired of the Dominion's endless wars. They wanted peace. They wanted to learn a different way. Daewon was suspicious. This could be a trap. But General Heejin advised him to meet them. She said that peace required taking risks. If there was even a small chance that some Vexlar wanted to change, they should explore it. Daewon agreed. He took a small fleet to the meeting point. The Vexlar rebels were genuine. They had abandoned their empire. They wanted to join the alliance. They brought information about Vexlar military plans. They offered to help defend against future attacks. Daewon accepted their offer, but with conditions. They would be watched carefully. They would have to prove their loyalty. Trust would have to be earned. This was an important moment. It showed that the war had changed more than just humans. It had changed the galaxy itself. Species that once fought each other were now working together. Old enemies were becoming new friends. The cycle of violence was breaking. Slowly, carefully, the galaxy was learning a new way. Years continued to pass. Humanity grew stronger and wiser. They explored new star systems. They made new friends. They built new worlds. But they never forgot the lessons of the war. Every new ship carried both weapons and tools. Every colony had both farms and fortifications. Humanity hoped for peace but prepared for war. Commander Bora retired from active service. She spent her final years writing a book about the war. She wanted future generations to know what happened. She wanted them to understand the price of freedom. Her book became required reading at every military academy in the Alliance. It was called simply The Battle That Shook the Galaxy. Sergeant Minji passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family. Thousands attended her funeral. Soldiers from 100 different worlds came to pay their respects. She was buried with full military honors on Earth, not far from the academy she had founded. Her gravestone read Defender of Earth. It was a title she had earned many times over. General Haye Jin lived to see the Alliance celebrate its 50th anniversary. She gave a speech at the ceremony. She talked about the dark days of the war. She talked about the sacrifices that were made. She talked about Dr. Taman and all the others who died so that everyone else could live. She reminded everyone that peace was precious and fragile. It had to be protected every day. Admiral Daewon remained on duty until he was 80 years old. Only then did he finally retire. He spent his last years at the Taemin Memorial Station, helping train new officers. Even in old age, he never stopped teaching, never stopped preparing the next generation. When he died, the entire fleet held a moment of silence. He was the last of the original war leaders, but the legacy of the war lived on. Every child in human space learned about it in school. They learned about the attack. They learned about the resistance. They learned about the victory. Most importantly, they learned why it mattered. They learned that freedom was worth fighting for. That courage could overcome any obstacle. That unity made people strong. The galaxy had changed forever. Before the war, strong species bullied weak ones. The Vexlar Dominion and others like them took what they wanted. No one could stop them. But humans proved that even a weak species could win if they refused to surrender. This inspired others. Rebellion started on conquered worlds. Oppressed species fought back. The old empires began to crumble. A new era began. An era where strength was measured not just by weapons and ships, but by courage and determination. Where small species could stand equal with large ones. Where peace was possible if everyone worked together. Humans had started this change. Their war with the Vexlar had been the spark. Now the entire galaxy was transforming. On Earth, people looked up at the stars every night. They knew they were not alone. They knew friends and enemies both watched from above. But they were not afraid. Their ancestors had faced an impossible enemy and won. That strength lived on in every human heart. If the aliens attacked again, humans would fight back again. The message was clear across the galaxy. Humans would defend their home. Humans would protect their friends. Humans would never surrender. And the galaxy would never forget the battle that changed everything.